Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to Fillmore Chapel. I'm so grateful, so glad to have you here. And I'd like to welcome those of you who are live streaming in. Thank you for being here with us at Fillmore Chapel at Unity Village. Incredible holy grounds. And those of you who are here from Unity Worldwide Ministries, I am so grateful that you're here. And those of you who are here from Unity World Headquarters, I'm grateful that you're here. And those of you who are here from Unity Institute and Seminary, I'm glad you're here. My classmates and my friends and people from Unity Southeast, I have to thank each and every one of you. Thank you. Oh, and my husband, Reverend James Marshall. What an amazing, amazing opportunity to be here in a beautiful autumn day. It's just incredible, is it not? It's cool, and the sun is out, and it's vibrant and alive like you are. We will begin our service with my husband, Reverend Jim Marshall, reading the daily word.
This is a reading from the daily word on change. And the affirmation for today is, I gracefully move through life's transitions. As colder days approach, trees shed their leaves and animals prepare for hibernation. They instinctively move through the seasons. In contrast, humans are prone to resisting change, even though we know it is an essential part of growth. I may notice myself worrying or fighting change. Then I remind myself I am able to prepare and move through any change I encounter. I envision myself shedding old beliefs and ways of being, just as a tree releases leaves. Like the hibernating animals, I prepare my mind and body for a time of quiet and reflection. I see divine order in the leaves reappearing each spring. My life also follows a pattern. I emerge from each season stronger, wiser, more loving. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1.
Thank you. And once again, I would like to introduce Chris Foster, our musician, our guitarist. And I was just sharing with you that when I first arrived here 3 years ago, I heard Chris play. And I went up to him and I said, "Oh, I'm going to have a chapel service. Will you please play for me?" And he gave me his card, which I promptly lost. And so my first chapel service came and went, and I had wonderful musicians. However, I knew for my second chapel service I would have to find Chris Foster, and I did. And so he's here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
With his Martin guitar, too. One of many. He will be playing an original composition and instrumental called Rivers and Streams, which we can just sit back and relax to. And then Jennifer Hutchins will come up and do our meditation.
into that sound, that vibration created in this space. I invite you just to breathe that in. And when you are comfortable, if you choose to do so, I invite you to close your eyes if you have not already done so. As we prepare for a time of reflection, a time of meditation together. Just like the trees, we have roots. Our roots reach deep. Imagine, if you will, your own roots reaching deep into this earth. They stretch down, seeking out nourishment. And like the trees, we have our sturdy trunk, our legs, our torso. This trunk represents the stability in our lives, the ability to be strong and persevere, to continue towards our own personal calling. Like the trees, we have branches that extend outward and upward toward whatever we define as that spiritual sense of being that fills and nourishes us with its light. And that light also coming from within us as it reaches outward. These branches of our being are all the many ways that we express ourselves in this world, all the people we have touched in our lives. They represent all the paths we have taken with all their twists and their turns. And as we stretch ourselves and our awareness upward and inward at the same time, we notice this light that has been forever with us through all the changing seasons of our lives. This light that has nourished us, that has brought new growth, new leaves to the ends of our branches, new activities, new thoughts, and new ideas. Imagine now all of these ideas ready for rebirth. All of these ideas and these beliefs are ready to be examined. And so they start to change, bringing awareness to them, just like the leaves of a tree in autumn change colors, bringing our awareness to their vibrancy. And in this moment today, I invite you to look at these leaves, these ideas, beliefs, actions, thoughts, and allow them to gently blow in the breeze. The wind is the wind of spirit as we enter into our time of meditation. And whatever we no longer need to hold on to, we allow ourselves to be willing to let that breeze shake those particular leaves free. I invite you to just breathe into the present moment. Breathe into the possibility of release, the possibility of change, that we may welcome all good that comes our way. So we breathe now, letting the wind blow in the silence. The breath of Spirit is forever present in your life, forever seeking to help you shake loose that which no longer serves you and to fill you with the knowledge of the indwelling presence. As we return our thoughts and our awareness to this place and this moment, bring with you that awareness of the wind that is ever present as Spirit in your life. When you are ready, you may open your eyes as we return to this present moment.
Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. You know, I realized I didn't introduce myself. I welcomed everybody, and I'm Judith Marshall. Thank you. And I'm minister for the day. I'm finishing up my last term here at seminary. And it's bittersweet. I thought I'd be celebrating life. Where'd Chris go? I thought I'd be doing that. Woohoo! You know? But I'm finding that as I'm having a time of reflection, that I'm thinking, oh, there's a lot to reflect about. It is bittersweet. So much learning, so much joy, and so much pain. As I get to know myself and find out who I am, and then go off into the universe. And what I'm finding out more than anything is the scripture that Jim read in Ecclesiastes, verse 1. Chapter 3, verse 1. For everything there is a season and a time for matter under heaven. There is a season and there is a time for every matter under heaven. How wise that is, and though I remember reading it years ago, I never really understood those words. Every season brings profound changes. Every season requires different responses from all of us. But the season that is the most profound for me and has been since I was a little girl is autumn. Autumn has always been a time of reflection and a time that offers an opportunity for transformation. A time for reflection and a time for transformation. Let's reflect for a minute about autumn and what is it that makes it so special? The characteristics of autumn. It's sort of a paradox. It's in the dying that there's the beauty. It's in the dying that is setting the stage to be reborn. I think about the flowers that we see in autumn and how as they're fading and they're withering, they are the most beautiful burgundy and yellow and orange. The mums are incredible this time of year. And the bees are buzzing around them, trying to get the last little bit of nectar out of them as they run back to the hive to prepare for winter. The air smells different, doesn't it? It just has a different smell. Even in St. Petersburg, Florida, it smells different now that it's autumn. I noticed that. Maybe it's because I was from Minnesota that I'm real sensitive to that. But there's a shift in the air, and it starts in August, preparing for autumn. It's crispy and it's cold, but yet the sun is out, so it's still warm. Again, that paradox. And the animals are scurrying around, preparing their harvest for their hibernation, and the birds are swarming overhead, whooshing and diving and just all around and preparing for their migration. the logs. You smell the smell of burning logs on the campfires and in the fireplaces now because the evenings are getting colder. Oh, and the harvest. Isn't that the most wonderful time of autumn? The harvest, because the pumpkins are coming, right? And they're big and then they're tiny. So we have the gourds and we have the squash and the fish, the potatoes, the sweet potatoes, the cucumbers. And this leads me to the promise of having a sweet year, because when I was growing up, raised in my family, we had the celebration of Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, the new year, the Jewish New Year. And it occurred in the autumn, and so we would be pulling in the harvest, the literal harvest of food. And my mother would make the most wonderful brisket, oh, to die for, with gravy, and we'd have parsleyed new potatoes. And then we'd have pickled beets. Oh, those beets were sweet and sour, again, another paradox. And we'd cut up apples. We would cut up apples and we'd drizzle them with honey, and we'd wish each other a sweet year. May you have a sweet year. May your year be filled with bountiful blessings, peace and joy, and good health. And so our harvest was one of the events of autumn. And for many of us, we were very happy with our harvest. Very happy with our harvest. Because it also brought a time for reflection. It brought a time to reflect on what was coming in the new year. And 10 days after Rosh Hashanah, we would have Yom Kippur, which was the Day of Atonement. And that's where we would look at how we've been in the past year and look at how we want it to be. And we would make our amends. And we'd take a look at what we wanted our life to be like. And again, we would wish each other a very good year, because we knew that God was sitting up there, right, with the book of life before him. And at this time, he was deciding who was going to live and who was going to die, and how they were going to die. And as a child, this was very important for me to know. And so we would make our amends and eat lots of apples. And we'd wish each other a very sweet year. Because at the time of harvest, again in Ecclesiastes, we read that God has given to everyone something to be busy with. He has made everything suitable for its time. Moreover, God has put a sense of past and future into their minds. Yet they cannot find out what God has done. So we ate lots of apples, drizzled with honey, and wished each other a sweet year. And I remember walking into the kitchen one day. I'd come home from school. I had a new bike, and I was so excited, and I had on my new school clothes, and I was so excited. And this was part of the autumn, too. And I walked into the kitchen, and I was listening to my parents talk about Mrs. Fitterman, who had breast cancer. And then my mother talked about Mr. Burns, who just 3 weeks ago had a clean bill of health, and he just dropped dead of a heart attack. Oh, and the tragedy was Ricky Kellerman, who was driving downtown to pick up his mother and slammed into the back of a truck. 16 years old. How could this be? All these things happened in the autumn and had a big impression on me, because what it told me is that for some, the harvest is lacking. It's not the harvest that we had hoped for. Our prosperity is not there, either figuratively or literally. Illnesses that we never thought would occur have occurred. Diagnoses are made, and people have died. And we've experienced this here at Unity. Ministers have died before we were ready to let them go, and ministers have died way too young. Our Unity movement is changing. This program that we have so loved, that in our family we have so loved, is now changing. The program as we know it will be no more. World tragedies are occurring. And of course, those demons, fear and doubt and insecurity, are rising like ever before. In the autumn, several years ago, when my husband and I first came to Unity Village so that he could go into ministerial school, we had an event that happened in our family that just broke our family apart. My husband's in ministerial school here at Unity Village on holy ground, and I'm becoming a new truth student, and I'm praying to this God that I'm learning to love. I'm finding my way into unity, and my family is driven to its knees. And I'm going, excuse me? I'm doing all the right things, right? I'm doing all the praying. I'm doing all the meditating. I'm literally praying. I'm working in a praying environment, and I'm going, God, what are you doing? Is this the God that's the one presence and the one power? And if so, I don't want you. Really? And yet, I'm not telling this story because I want you to think about, well, what happened in her family. I'm wanting you to reflect. I'm wanting you to go inside yourself and reflect. Have you experienced something that has brought you to your knees? Have you experienced pain and you look up at the God above, or even the God inside, and say, what's going on? I'm doing all the right things. And then, how did I create this, right? Third unity principle, we are co-creators. Well, my point is, in this talk, is not to focus in on we are co-creators and we did this. My point is to talk about how we are co-creators and how we can respond to this. Because autumn gave me an opportunity for transformation. Autumn is a time for transformation when we're ready. Our third unity principle is we are co-creators. Let's look at that principle again. How do we co-create? How do we have the ability to transform our lives? First, we grieve. We rail against this God. If we have that temperament, we yell, we scream, we stamp our foot. We do whatever we need to do. We cry, we question. Grief is necessary to go through, and sometimes repeatedly. It's not that, oh, okay, today I'm going to grieve and tomorrow then I'm going to move on. No, it comes and it goes. And I remember for years afterward, even now, there are times when I go into a Hallmark store and I look at something and it reminds me of what happened. And I go, oh. And I own it, and then I come back. So the grieving process is so important as a part of the steps towards transformation. And above all, we let go of preconceived ideas about how our life should be? Where is it etched in gold that I will not have tragedy in my family? Where is it etched in gold that things will be paved in gold for me? So we let go of preconceived notions. We accept what is over and over and over again. And as we do, we allow God, this one presence and one power, God the good, to work in our lives. The very God we rail against, isn't that the God we are longing for? That we say, how could you do this, God, help me? How could you do this? Where are you? I need you. Right? Absolutely. And that God is in and through us. Yes, our first unity principle works. It's true. There is only one presence and one power. And it's the awareness of these stages that we go through. There are many master teachers here at Unity Institute and Seminary. Yes, there are. And for the master teachers that have taught me, it seems like the learning is coming slowly over time. I may have sat in your classes and I've said, I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's too academic for me. But you know, now, as my schedule is winding down and as I'm living and going through this season, I'm reflecting and I'm realizing I'm getting it. I'm understanding. And the master teacher that I want to introduce you to right now through my reading is Reverend Robert Brummett. And for a while, I couldn't remember if it was from his classes, The Art of Spiritual Direction, or was it Pastoral Counseling 2, or 1, or studies. But it was from the Lyceum. And this is my understanding of what he said. To surrender means to surrender the ego, to let go, to stop resisting what is, and to become humble to God. To surrender means to surrender, to let go, to stop resisting what is, and to allow ourselves to become humble to that one presence and that one power. And it's then that we are empowered to become co-creators. It's then we are empowered to become co-creators with God, and it is this being open to the God expressing as us that we find our way again. It's this being open to God expressing as us that we find our way back. It's about surrendering to the divine. It's not just the affirming of a specific affirmation. It's surrendering to the knowledge and total immersion in the one presence and the one power, no matter what is going on in our lives. Total immersion in the one presence and the one power, no matter what is going on in our lives. So we surrender. We surrender the ego, our will. And we surrender and open to the divine, to God. And with humility, we allow God to express as us. Reverend Brummett also tells a story at Lyceum. He told the story of a rabbi who was asked by one of his students, "What is the role of the rabbi?" And the rabbi said, "The role is to place the truth upon the student's heart. And the student asked, well, why upon the heart? Why not in it? And the rabbi said, because when the student's heart breaks open, the truth will fall in. And it took me a while to understand that until I remembered what had happened in our family. And I realized that it was when my heart broke open that I could then remember who I was and whose I was. That I am a child of God, and that I am this precious child of God, the good. And as such, I can co-create in my life no matter what is happening. And that is the truth that needed to fall in. So this tragedy that I think occurred in my family, what I perceived as tragedy, has been an incredible moment for me to open and to have a deeper relationship with the God of my being. To go deeper and deeper. And for that, I thank my master teachers and the master teacher of all, the one presence and the one power. I have a friend, and she has a habitat for monarch butterflies. And she received this summer a little egg. Maybe 2 or 3, maybe more. But what I saw when I visited her this summer was a little habitat with little black thingies hanging from the ceiling of this little habitat. And one day, I received a picture on my phone, and it said, OMG. You know what that is? OMG, oh my God. Birth is imminent. And I look at the next picture, and there's this wing bursting out of this black thing. And then another picture where the monarch is sitting on her finger. And I'm going, wow. Talk about transformation. Talk about an innocent little egg turns into a little worm who becomes a caterpillar, and then all of a sudden is drawn to the back of a leaf, and then moves up to this ceiling and turns into mush. Now, isn't that what our lives are like sometimes? Right? We turn into mush. And then what happens? What happens? We come out the monarch butterfly. So my hope for each and every one of you in hearing this message, for those who are live streaming, that you take some time this season and reflect on the season, reflect on your life, and see where it has been an opportunity for transformation, where it has provided you with an opportunity to look at our third unity principle in a new light. We are co-creators. And also to see autumn as a season of reflection and transformation. And may you have a very sweet year. God bless you.